We start off with Portugal coming back from behind to defeating Czechia. Um, this is an interesting game. This was a game that Portugal were the much better team, the more dominant team, the bigger protagonist. There's no doubting that. When you look at Portugal having 74% of possession, Portugal having 19 shots to 5 shots for Czech, 8 shots on target to 1 shot for Czechia. It's clear Portugal were the main protagonists, but it was also Portugal who found themselves down late in the game. First, in the 62nd minute, when Lucas Provost was able to score a wonder of a goal right outside the box, tucked it into the corner, and it was a Portugal team for the first 60 or odd minutes that looked, no, for pretty much the entire game, not gonna lie, that looked a little bit of a slow in terms of not really having much players that were vertical, that ran in behind, that were willing to take on the defender one-on-one. And Rafael Leao, he tried to do that, but then his final ball would be horrible, like it wouldn't find nobody. Ronaldo, he was looking a lot for that ball, for the cross in. His main attribute, or his main form of trying to create space for himself, was trying to create space in between the center halves, or space between the center backs and the full backs for a potential cross in. Apart from that, no real movements from Ronaldo, but that's kind of what we expect. He is a box striker at this day and age. And Portugal just looked slow, looked devoid of ideas. I never could really understand what João Cancelo was playing, because I looked at the lineup to start off. You got Vitinha and Bruno Fernandes playing a double pivot. That's not what I would go with, just to say it nicely. And then you see it's João Cancelo. He's kind of like, so he's listed originally in the starting lineup as a left wing back or so, but he's kind of like a hybrid, can do whatever he wants. There was sometimes he was in that left side, sometimes he was picking up pockets in midfield. There was some times that he was on the right hand side, and it was just confusing to me, the role he had, exactly what he was brought in to do. I was very confused with João Cancelo. In Portugal, they're trying to be this fluid team that are positionless. They can all rotate, because they have players. They have Bernardo Silva, Vitinha, Bruno Fernandes, João Cancelo, that are all players that can play in different positions. So they want to be this fluid team, kind of like the way England tried setting up against Serbia. The first 15 minutes, they were fluid. They were all taking each other's spaces. They were all playing in different parts of the pitch. Portugal tried to do that, but they tried to do that throughout this game, but it just was too slow, too stagnant. You had players, Bruno Fernandes, he didn't really get on the ball enough. He wasn't really in the prime areas that he could be dangerous. Bernardo Silva, same thing. The spaces that he was picking up were spaces that he was ineffective, spaces that he couldn't show really his quality. Talked about Cristiano Ronaldo. His the main thing he was trying to do the entire game was try to find spaces in between the center backs, or in between the center back and full backs, for a little pocket of spaces that he could get a header off. That wasn't really dropping down and joining play as much. Had one nice back heel, I believe it was to Vitinha, who didn't get through. But other than that, didn't really get involved much with general play. Didn't really cover that much space. Kind of patrolled in his own area, but that's what we expect of Ronaldo at this day and age. Rafael Leao, I think it was absolutely horrible, and he's always been horrible for Portugal. He's the main guy that's really should be, that's looked at as the guy to bring in verticality, someone that can beat someone one-on-one and open up space for his teammates. But his final ball was just so poor, and he was just so bad the entire game, and it was just so slow from Portugal. Now Czech, they played well. They had their back three, they had their full wing backs tucked in. They had Susek covering any space left between the center backs, and they were really tight. Povrort and Dodera were very, very tight and compact. So there was not that much space for the Czechians, and even on the transitions, they didn't put many guys. They didn't really push up many guys forward. They were really attacking with 3 guys, maybe 4 guys. and they were really closing off the space, and they defended really, really well. They put they defended for their lives, but Portugal were able to find the goal to tie it up. Goalkeeper mistake, in my opinion, by Stanek. In that position, that's a catchable ball. That's very catchable. Instead, he tries to hit it out. The Czech defender can't do nothing about it. Deflects off him into the back of the net. I thought it was poor from the goalkeeper. Then, speaking about Portugal being slow, being lethargic, being stagnant, it took Roberto Martinez 90 minutes, but he finally brings on, he originally brought on Diego Jota in the 60th minute or so when they were chasing. But then in the last minute, he brought on Semedo, Gonzalo Inacio, and Pedro Neto. And Pedro Neto, in my opinion, he brought on Pedro Neto, Conceição, and Semedo in that last minute, and Pedro Neto ended up making the play. He provided the verticality. He sped up play that this Portugal team needed because they were so slow. He came in and made the difference and provided the verticality. He got past the player, put in a cross. The Czech defender messed up the clearance. It went through in between his legs, and then Conceição right there, right in front of the goal for an easy tap in, and that's the victory for the Portuguese national team after a long, hard-fought grind of a game. They really struggled to break them down, but they were eventually able to get it down, and it was an impressive comeback to do it that late in the game. But still, there's Portugal come out of that game with a lot more questions than answers, in my opinion. That they were shaky. I really think defensively is a big concern that I had about that game, because Czech really did not go into this. They went in with the mentality that a point was enough, and they never really pushed guys forward at all. And the very few opportunities that they did, they were in, and they had a good opportunity. That goal was probably one of their only attacks that entire game up to that point. And then they also had another clear-cut opportunity after Portugal were able to equalize. They had another clear opportunity where if the Czech player can control the ball cleanly and able to lay it off for one of the Czechian players coming in, it could have been another goal for Czech. And for me, it's just like in transition, that Portuguese defense looked very weak, and they looked like they could be had. And then when they're going up against quality opponents that have like a France, in my opinion, that has quality, that has their ability to play in transition, if Portugal defend the way that they did against Czech, oh my goodness, they could get melted by Germany. They could get melted. It was very, very concerning, in my opinion, the way that they defended, because they were really put under pressure in Czech. There was only a few moments that Czech really decided, like the Czechians really pushed up the field. And the few moments they did, it led to good opportunities. Susek had a very good opportunity that could have made it 2-1. That's something that would be a major concern for Roberto Martinez, in my opinion, alongside their slow ability of not moving the ball. They gotta move the ball quicker. Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, they need to be pushed in better areas to have more of an effect in the game. I thought Vitinha was excellent. I've told myself, I've said this before on this podcast many times. Vitinha, he's a big time player, and I don't think he's a guy that would shrink in this. So I think he's amazing. It's amazing his rise at PSG, and it's amazing for this Portuguese national team, because that's the kind of player that can really rise up for these Portuguese in these high pressurized moments. But Bruno Fernandes, the days that he does not show up, it's like they're playing 10 versus 11, because he's literally an utter useless, and that's what he was today. I mean, Bruno Fernandes, he didn't really put his foot in the game at all. I thought he was forced to play a little bit deep just because of the way Roberto Martinez set up, and that made Ronaldo. That made it difficult for Ronaldo, because he wasn't really getting the service. And then Bernardo Silva, he wasn't picking up the right areas, the right pockets of space that he could really be dangerous. It was like he was trying to kind of drifting. He was trying to figure out, where do I go? What space do I take? With this new with this fluid type of football that Roberto Martinez wants to play with the Portuguese. Now, the Portuguese, they do get to take on Turkey next game. This is a Turkey team that was able to get past Georgia 2-1. It was actually a very, very good game in my opinion. I really love that game. Fascinating, going back and forth. And it's a good test for the Portuguese national team. A brilliant test for them. But they need to change it up. Now, I think a lineup change, I think you need to get get rid of this new fluid type of way. Just go with the normal set back four. Keep Vitinha and Bruno Fernandes in midfield, but probably bring a holding midfielder in there to allow Bruno Fernandes to push up the field, to allow Vitinha to push up higher up the field, and then defensively provide you cover, because in transition, it was very concerning how they look, because João Cancelo is not the guy that will, provide you, because forget the João Cancelo hybrid fullback midfielder type of role. That did not work, and it made everything slow, and it made everything confusing for the Portuguese players that didn't understand what spaces to take and all that. So I think you just go back to what made you really good at qualifiers. I don't know why Roberto Martinez comes into the first game and decides to change it all up, but yeah, I mean, they still were able to get the win, which is the good thing for Portugal. And yeah, I think it's time that they change it up. They need to go back to their normal qualifying ways for this next game against Turkey.